In this video, we're going to take a look at place value through the thousandths. The goal for this video is to be able to change decimals from expanded and word form to standard form. A key tip for this video in doing this is to remember that in word form the decimal is the word and, for example 1 and 276 thousandths. And also when reading a decimal, say only the place value of the last digit, for example 2 and 498 thousandths. So reviewing the three different forms that you can see these decimals: expanded form, you can see right up there, standard form, and word form. If you're still not familiar with these, you may want to write this down in your notes. So what we're going to do first of all is change a decimal that's in expanded form to standard form. Okay, and you will need graph paper for this. Okay, so what we'll do is just add all the numbers together. We'll put the numbers in the correct place value and line them up nicely. Okay, so we'll start out with 20. So we're going to do that first. Okay, we'll write that right in our graph paper. Okay, it's important to know that each square receives only one digit. Okay, now we go to the 3. Okay, so we go to the 3 here. We write that, make sure that 3 falls right in the ones place. Okay, now what we're going to do is write our 0 and 4/10 right next to that. Now it's important that you always line up the decimal from here on out. Okay, then we have 0, 0, and 200ths, and then finally 0, decimal point 0, 0, 9. Okay, now that we have everything lined up in the correct place value and where it needs to go, we just drop the numbers down. We have our 9, we have our 2 in our hundredths place, our 4 in our tenths place. Do not forget to drop this decimal down. We have the 3 in the ones place and the 2 in the tens place. Okay, for a total of 23 and 429 thousandths. So you can see it's very important to line up the decimal, line up the place value, and you'll be completely fine with this concept. Now I'm going to have you do the next two with me, so let's get out a pencil, and I want you to do like I said, the next two with me. So we'll start out with our number 1, which is pretty simple. The very first digit to the left, we have the number 1. Okay, now from here on out, we're going to include a decimal in every digit that we write. So we have our 0 there that falls in the ones place, our decimal point, and then our 5/10. Next we have our 0 in the ones place, decimal point, 0 in the tenth place, 3 in the hundredths place. And then finally going to our 8/1000ths, we have 0 in the ones place, decimal point, 0 in the tenths, 0 in the hundredths, 8 in the thousandths. So we add all of these together, just drop our numbers down. We have our 8, we have our 3, we bring down our 5, do not forget that decimal point, and we have our 1 for a total of 1 and 538 thousandths. Now let's do this next one together as well. We're going to write our 6 down in our graph paper. And then from here on out, we're going to line up our place value. We have our 0 in the ones place, decimal point, and then our 2. We have our 0 in the ones place, 0 in the tenths place, 6 in the hundredths place. And then finally 0 in the ones place, 0 in the tenths, 0 in the hundredths, and 1 in the thousandths. And we add all these together. We're just going to drop our digits, drop our decimal point as well, do not forget that, and we have 6 there in our ones place for a number that reads 6 and 261 thousandths. Now I want you to do these next two problems all by yourself. Okay, if you need to rewind this video a little bit and watch the examples again, feel free to do that. Remember, you're just lining up the place value and then dropping your numbers. So I want you to do this problem all by yourself. When you're finished, you can press play, and then I'll have the answers for you. So I want you to pause the video now. Okay, so for the first problem, you should have gotten the answer of 3 and 637 thousandths. For the second number, 90 and 52 hundredths. If you did not get either of these two answers or one incorrect, you'll want to rewind it and possibly go over a couple other examples that we went over to see what you did wrong. Okay, so that's how you take numbers that are in expanded form, decimals that are expanded form, and put them into standard form. Now we're going to take a look at decimals and changing them to word form. I'm sorry, we're going to take a look at decimals that are in word form and change them to standard form. Okay, I'm going to do this first one for you. So it's important to remember a couple things. Whenever you see the word and, that means you put a decimal point there. Okay, now what we're going to do first of all, we're going to take a look at just our whole number. So that the whole number is 3. Very, very simple. We're going to write the 3 down. We're going to break this down step by step. Now we go to our next word in our problem that's in word form, which is the word and. Okay, so since we have the word and there, what we're going to do is just put a simple decimal point, because that's what the and represents. Okay, now 24 hundredths. It's really important that whenever you're writing a number from word form to standard form, that you take a look at this last name, so to speak, of the number, hundredths. So that means this final digit, 24, or the 4, is going to fall into the hundredths place. This is pretty simple for this problem because we can just write 24 just like that, but it may not always be the case. Okay, so the way to check this out is I have 3 and 24 hundredths. I check that last number, make sure that 4 falls in the hundredths place, which it does. Okay, so always take a look at the last name, so to speak, of the number. That last digit has to fall in that place value. Let's take a look at one, and we'll do the next one together. Okay, now we have a problem or a number in word form. I'm going to change it to standard form. It's 7 and 143 thousandths. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is just take a look at that whole number, which is the number 7. That's pretty simple. We're going to write that down. And then next we come to the word and. We're going to write that down as the decimal point. All right, now before we jump into the number that's in the decimal place value here, okay, the 143, we need to take a look at that final last name of the decimal, which is thousandths. So since it's thousandths, we need to remember that this final digit, 143, the 3 in 143 has to fall in the thousandths place. It cannot fall anywhere else. Okay, now a problem like this is pretty simple because we could just simply write 100, erase that really quick, 143. Okay, so now we have 7 and 143 thousandths. The reason why I know this is correct is because my final digit falls in the thousandths place. Okay, now we're going to take a look at one last problem together, 2 and 13 thousandths. Now this one's a little tricky, okay, but the first thing we want to do is just write the 2 down, the whole number down. We have and for the decimal point, pretty simple there. Now we have the number 13, okay, and it's going to be 13 thousandths. All right, now it's important to remember that the final digit of that 13 has to fall in the thousandths place. Okay, so what I'm going to have to do is put a 0 in front of that 13. All right, so I write 0 and then 13. Okay, and I double check that 3 falls in the thousandths place. If I were just to write it like this, 2 and 13, that would be 2 and 13 hundredths. So it's important to remember that final digit must fall in whatever place value you see at the end of your decimal. So 2 and 13 thousandths right here would be the correct way. This would actually represent 2 and 13 hundredths. Now what I want you to do now are do these next 2 problems all by yourself. If you need a little bit of help or a little bit of refresher before you do this, you can rewind the video and watch the previous examples. When you are finished with this, you can press play and I will have the answers for you. So I want you to pause the video now. Okay, here are your 2 answers. We have 4.067. Okay, I understand that's not mathematically correct how I said, but I'm just trying to show you the answer here. It's important to know that you have to have a 0 in front of that 67 in order for that 7 to fall in the thousandths place. Second one, 6 and 218 thousandths. You can see the answer right here. Okay, if you need a little bit more practice, feel free to rewind the video and work on this topic a little bit more. If you have any questions about this topic and you're still struggling, please come and see me.